Hey everyone, it's Matt Szat. Thanks again for joining us for another Vanishing Inc. interview. Our guest today was a featured lecturer at Magi Fest, is the resident magician at the famous Chicago Magic Lounge, and has authored multiple books, including his most recent bestseller, Distilled. Please welcome in Ryan Plunkett.
Hey, how are you?
What's going on, Ryan? How's life in Chicago these days? We've been following you on Instagram, and it seems like you're staying busy. So what have you been up to since we last saw you?
I'm just hunkering down, trying to stay safe. This has been a really great time to read books that I haven't had a chance to read and really study things I haven't had a chance to study. So I've been using this as kind of an incubation time to just create new stuff. So it's been a ton of fun, truly.
Awesome. Hey, you're taking advantage of the time. And first off, congratulations on Distilled. It's been one of our best sellers. It has great reviews. But for anyone who has not read Distilled yet, it's a book filled with a bunch of really practical and professional close-up and parlor routines. They're taken straight from Ryan's professional set. And in fact, many of these are your signature effects from your nightly show at the Chicago Magic Lounge. So if you could just take a moment, tell us a little more about yourself, the Chicago Magic Lounge, how you're involved with it, and kind of how this book ultimately came to be.
I moved to Chicago probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and I moved here for the theater scene. And I met this group of people that were starting this project, and it kind of just took root in Chicago, and it became our sole focus for so long. And of course, doing that many shows a week, it just demands more and more material and more of your time and thought. So I just had material kind of, backing up from over the years of stuff that I really liked doing that I wanted to share. And this just seemed like a really great opportunity to do it. So I took, 10 of my favorite things for right now, and I put them in a book, and it's become something I'm really proud of.
And that's cool too. You mentioned over the years. These are not routines you just put together. And a lot of people have noticed it's a 200 plus page book, but there is only 10 routines. And I put only in there because each routine you've taken and you've refined it. And you actually talk in the beginning, for people who don't have the book, in the beginning you explain how Distilled was named for the fact that you build and refine your magic in the same way to how a fine whiskey is distilled. So you talked about evolving it over the years. Can you give us a little more insight into this process and the strategies you use when you're developing magic?
I think to develop magic, you just have to find what you like. And so, over the years, you find these pieces, and maybe they're from other people, maybe
Mhm.
there's something you read in a book, but you over time start adapting things, changing things. This move doesn't work for my hand, so I'm going to do this, and eventually you have something that looks completely different than where you started. So I don't think that going out and trying to create magic by brute force is maybe the thing for me. But I like, over time, slowly changing things and slowly making them make sense in my hands. And it seemed to be, a strategy that's worked for me at least.
Oh, that's great. I totally understand that. You've mentioned, I think it's in the book as well too. But the best way, like you said, to become a better magician is just to perform as much as you can in front of as many people as you can, finding out what works for you. Just because it doesn't work for you in the beginning doesn't mean you can't evolve it to work for you. And you can find those details in those tweaks that take a good routine into something that you could call a reputation maker. So, but for someone, you talked about how you met up with a group of friends, but not everyone has a chance to perform at an awesome venue like the Chicago Magic Lounge. Before that, what were you doing to find more opportunities to perform and really get your chops together?
That's a great question, and you hit the nail on the head. The real secret to getting better and getting as good as you want to be is doing it, performing all of the time as much as you can. That's the secret. Like, that's the real work. You just have to do it, and over time, it'll start to make sense more and more, and you'll slowly start to figure more things out. None of us are the expert, but we're all just every day trying to push just a little bit more and become just a little bit better. And over time, that's exponential growth. To perform more, seek out opportunities. I'm from the theater world, so I love, highly collaborative environments, and so that's one of the things that kind of led to my involvement with the Magic Lounge, is because it is an ensemble every night. I'm lucky enough to be working with all sorts of different viewpoints on magic, and they challenge your ideas and they make your ideas better. Um, but I also know that that's extremely lucky, right? Not everybody has that, in their backyard. Uh, so make it. Or find a bar that you really like and go perform at that. God willing, that bars open up again. Go find an environment where you think your magic speaks the truest, and that's where you should work. Your magic, it kind of is only as good as the environment that you put it in. That's another thing to really to look at. Does your magic work in a bar? If not, don't work in a bar. So I don't know.
And no, that's very good. That last line about where the magic works, and this is very distinct in Distilled because we wouldn't say you have a character. You don't have a very over the top character for say, but you definitely have a distinct performance style. It's like a very classic and suave, but like modern version. And I like that a lot, and that really shows. And there's the modern takes on like Di Vernon's "Out of Sight, Out of Mind." So how important do you really think it is to, you said find magic that works for the environment, but how important do you think it is to find the environment and find that style before you start developing these effects or before you try to make your own effects?
I'm not sure that you'll know. I think that you should, gravitate toward the places in the world that make you happy, and I think that that will be revealing. For me, I really like that modern gentleman aesthetic, right? When I look at magic, I really love like Guy Hollingworth. He's one of my favorites. Leipzig, Vernon. I love reading these old suave gentlemen. Cardini was a huge influence. And Leipzig used to say, uh, the audience wants to feel, if the audience likes you, then they'll like your act. And so being extremely likable, is a benefit. So I'm going to play into that for me. But the way you carry yourself, the aesthetic that you present, that goes to the material that you do too. If you're dressed in a three-piece suit and you come out there and you start doing, just stuff with jumbo wands, and it maybe there's a disconnect, right? So the material will influence the character will.
I hear you.
I live in
Ryan,
Chicago, so I warned you, every 2 minutes we'll hear a
no, don't
siren.
worry about it. So that's actually you made a really good point there, and I totally agree that the trick selection is very important. It's important to me. I've always I've found that I don't, if I'm doing a really knuckle busting thing that I haven't practiced a lot and I'm not focusing on being who I am as the character and the person I want to be, I don't come off as that likable thing. So the trick selection is just as important as creating your own effects. But you also brought up something too, you're working on all these effects and you want to be likable and you want to, and the thing is when you're performing them over and over and over again, night after night after night, a lot of magicians can actually get a little bit of performance fatigue. We just spoke with David Williamson about the same thing, and we kind of joked about that old Vernon quote: if you don't like magic, don't do it as a profession. So while you're performing these effects night in and night out, how do you keep yourself likable, keep yourself, enjoying it and not entering that autopilot mode, and, motivating yourself to stay engaged with the audience?
I mean, David is the one to know, right? How many times he's done that circus, and every night has kept it so fresh. You know, uh, I think you have to really love it. Liking magic and studying magic is awesome, and it's a super hobby, right? And some of the greats were hobbyists. Uh, but to do it as a profession, it'll challenge you in ways that you probably have no idea. It'll force you every night to rediscover things. I know that when we first started the Magic Lounge in the new theater, Malone gave me a really great piece of advice, and he says every time you do it, change something, change the inflection of a moment, change where the moment is, change how you get to the moment, change the lines that you say, even if it's one small thing. Every time, do it just a little bit different, and you'll start to slowly tweak your way to something that you really like, right? So even if you have a new piece that you're not sure of, the more you do it and the more you're always tweaking it, the more you'll slowly gravitate toward the thing that makes more sense to you. Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
that makes total sense. And I know I did that in my own thing. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I will try. If you don't have it on the spot, can you think of one, maybe even from Distilled, where it's kind of one of those moments where you made a tweak and it really, you just saw that change, kind of like what Malone told you to do?
You mentioned it before. I think the out of sight, out of mind is a really great example because that's one of those, old classic plots. Like that's not a new trick, right? And there are a ton of versions. And there's, and I'm not going to say that mine is the best or the one everybody should do, but I will say that the method that I ended up with is is a little involved, but it's something that fits comfortably in my hand. These are, methods that I have explored a lot, and it just kind of, it flows for me. It works for my hands, and it's worth sharing. You know.
And that's great. I know a lot of people are in the same position, and you're very humble about it. It's not the best, but it works for you, and I think that's the biggest takeaway. That's the most important. Is even if you're not developing your own tricks, you're tweaking tricks, or you're just doing tricks that are already created. It's just making it work for you, and that's going to bring the success. And to get there, you have to perform it a lot and make those
Hmm.
tweaks. But to step away from the performance side for a bit, because I thought something very interesting is I know that you have a very an accomplished theater background with lighting, and lighting is one of the most important elements of theater production. It's one of the last things I learned about because I didn't realize how important it was at first. But so, like me, I think it's often overlooked by a lot of magicians. So, what are a few things that you could think of, a few tricks that magicians can start doing right away to improve the quality of their show, not from a trick standpoint, but from a production standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. And Morgan and West are also really great to talk about this too. And they talk about it in their book Parlor Tricks. Plug plug. Uh, but theatricality is huge. What you're doing fundamentally is you're creating a show. You're creating a piece of theater. You're creating an experience, right? And so the tricks are maybe a very small part of that, and they're very important, but they're small in terms of the overall, experience. So look at sound effects. Listen, I'm a big music lover. I love collecting vinyl and exploring music. And so, I also did a lot of sound design, and those kind of complemented each other. I listened to a lot of music. It would inform how I would, approach a show. And then I just took that and I applied it to magic. It's what is the stuff I'm listening to? Does this moment need, a sound effect to accentuate, a gag or part of a joke? Or does the magic moment need this swirling effect? So you see it visually and then you hear it also. So you're always trying to add to the senses. And one thing that lighting taught me is to look at one thing and be able to, my lighting professor used to say, you go over it with a fine tooth comb, constantly go over it with a fine tooth comb. Look for those little things that you can change and you can tweak. So you have this overall picture, this thing you're trying to create, but you have to be able to destroy and tweak little pieces of it at a time.
No, that makes total sense. I love what you're saying about both the lighting and the music, because I know I'm the same way with the music. I don't know if anyone else does this. It's probably one of those things that everyone does, but nobody talks about. Like I'll hear a song go by and I'll be like, if my life was a movie, what part, where would this song be in the movie? The beginning, the end, the party scene, and then how does that go into the same magic that carries the same vibe? And the lighting too. I really learned it not on my stage shows that I've done, but I've learned it when I got into the virtual space. I don't know if you've been doing a lot of virtual magic, but a lot of magicians in the beginning were just plopping down in front of a webcam, and now we're learning, you need a little bit of lighting, you need to put a backlighting or things like that, things that I kind of knew but didn't know and had to research and go over with that fine tooth comb. So I really, really appreciate you sharing that. That's awesome, awesome insight. It's been a fascinating conversation. But before you go, if you have a few moments, we like to end our interviews with a few fun, they're rapid fire questions. Don't want you to think too much. Just kind of answer as soon as you can if you're willing to do that.
Okay, go.
All
Shoot.
right, we're
Yeah.
gonna start with some easy ones, some layups here. What playing cards do you use most regularly?
Oh, that's a great question. So for shows, I use Gold Seal bikes.
Mhm.
They're so familiar, they're so recognizable, they're so unassuming, but I like the B
Mm.
stock. If I'm just shuffling cards, I really like These I forget what are these. These are I like Arcos. I like studs. I like really soft cards because
Okay.
I'll use cards
Mhm.
forever.
All right, so this one's gonna be a tough one, and you got to stick to one on this one. And this is what we like to put people on the spot. But the first book that comes to your mind, non-magic or magic, that every magician should read.
Oh,
No wrong answers.
okay. I'm gonna go with a book that my art teacher told me about in college. I'm gonna go with The Art Spirit by Robert Henry.
Okay.
He was a painter and a professor, and his students over the years would write down just the things he said, and he was talking specifically about painting and about art, but I think it's, so applicable to any kind of art that you're trying to create. And so the book is written in such a way where there are just little fragments of thoughts all over the place, so you can read one thing and it'll inspire you in ways that he maybe didn't even mean to. And so it's been one of that one book for years that I've constantly gone back to just to look for inspiration or like a different way to approach something or look at something.
As an awesome, awesome suggestion. And then, who do you think is the most underrated magician that's performing today?
Whoa, that's a great question. Uh,
You can name a couple if you really want, but we're hoping for just one. Don't worry, you're on the spot, so no one's gonna think you're taking favorites.
uh, man, that's tough. Okay, I'm gonna have to go with a cop out answer. I'm gonna say my friend Nick Defat. He's one of the smartest working magicians today, and I
Okay.
think he's just a genius the way he looks at magic.
There's no cop out answers. All right, this is a good one. This one's really interesting. It's important. I think a lot of people are going to take a lot away from this. But what's one piece of advice you'd give your younger self? It can be magic, non magic related, just some kind of life advice you'd give your younger self.
Hmm. You know what? I wish I I wish I studied books sooner. You know, when I first started out, I looked at magic as just getting more toys, and I really liked playing with the toys. But I think the moment I started taking it seriously, I wish that that moment is when I really started diving into literature, because the good stuff and the most rewarding stuff is in print, and nobody's reading it.
Yeah.
Tricks will come and go, but man, those books, those are constant gold mines.
And something tells me by looking behind you, you've really you did dive into that literature. You got a nice
I
library.
love books, yeah.
You see the nice library behind there. All right, we got a couple, two more. These ones are
All right.
super quick. These are some fun ones. Do you have a non-magic skill or hobby that nobody knows about?
Well, if I told you, then people would know about it.
True, true. Or that maybe people know about, a secret one. We'll call it secret till now.
A secret skill or hobby? No.
Don't like to cook. Well, you have a refined whiskey palate. We can go with that.
Sure, let's go with that. Yeah.
Let's go. Let's go with that. All right. And here's the last one. This is the most important question I'm going to ask.
Okay.
I'm in Chicago. I'm visiting. Just got out of the lounge. We're hungry. Nothing's open. I come over. You got to cook for me. You have an unlimited pantry. You can cook anything you want. What are you cooking?
Breakfast burrito. Let's do
Breakfast burrito.
this. It's late
These
and we're drunk. Let's go.
All right. I mean, that works for me. And I like, see, look, we talked about putting magic into the situation. You even answered that question in the situation. And I love a good breakfast burrito. That's all I got, though. Hey, thank you so much for speaking with us, Ryan.
Yeah,
Distilled
this is a
is
ton of
available
fun.
now. Yeah, no, absolutely. Distilled is now available at vanishingmagic.com. That's our website. But if anyone wants to learn more about you, where should they go? Where can they find you on social media, wherever else?
RyanPlunkett.com is my personal website. You can find me on Instagram. Other than that, I'm just floating around laying low. So,
All right. Well, thank you so much. We will chat again soon, but have a good rest of your day.
yeah, thanks, Matt.